Why do you keep loving someone who hurts you? Why, even when they ignore you, hurt you, or make you feel small, can't your mind let them go? Maybe you've asked yourself this 1,000 times, staring at your phone waiting for a message, making excuses for the inexcusable, promising yourself this time will be the last, only to go back again. This isn't just about willpower or weakness. It's not because you like to suffer. What nobody told you is that your brain is literally wired to cling to what's familiar, even when it hurts. In this video, we'll uncover why your mind holds on to someone who's bad for you, how emotional wounds and brain chemistry keep you stuck, and most importantly, what you can do to break free. Welcome, Neurocurious Minds. Let's start by understanding why your brain chooses to stay, even when your heart wants to run. To understand why your mind clings to someone who hurts you, you first have to look at how your attachment system works. Your brain is designed to keep you connected to others, because for most of human history, depending on others was literally a matter of survival. Being close, belonging, forming bonds, that meant safety. That's why, even when the relationship is dysfunctional, your attachment and reward systems keep firing, because to your brain, losing that bond feels like a threat. Every time that person gives you a little attention or affection after ignoring or hurting you, your brain gets a hit of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and dopamine, the pleasure and reward hormone. This intermittent cycle of rejection and affection actually strengthens the connection, like an unpredictable reward that becomes almost addictive. And here's the paradox. To your brain, the familiar, even if it hurts, feels safer than the uncertainty of letting go. Even when you know it's bad for you, your brain chooses to stay because it believes at least it's predictable, and therefore less dangerous than facing the unknown. Understanding this doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat it, but it does help you stop blaming yourself and recognize that biology is part of the equation. So here comes another question. Why, beyond just staying, do you keep justifying and minimizing what's hurting you? In addition to clinging to the bond, your mind looks for explanations to cope with the pain and the dissonance between what you experience and what you want. This is where your defense mechanisms kick in. One of the most common is denial. Downplaying what's happening, convincing yourself it's not that bad, or they'll change. This helps your brain lower anxiety in the short term so you can keep holding on. Another is rationalization, inventing reasons to justify their behavior. They're just stressed, or it's partly my fault. These excuses give you a false sense of control, as if you could fix the situation if you just tried harder or waited a little longer. And then there's idealization, clinging to the good moments while erasing the bad from memory. Your brain tends to replay emotional rewards, the smiles, the sweet words, the moments of connection, and ignore the harm, because those pleasant memories trigger dopamine again and ease the discomfort temporarily. These mechanisms, while understandable, keep your mind stuck in the cycle and cloud your ability to see what's really happening. So here's the next question. If all this is happening in your brain, why does it feel almost impossible to walk away, even when you've decided to? At some point, you realize something unsettling. It's not just that it's hard to let go. It's that your brain seems to need this person, like a drug. That's because the relationship activates the same brain circuits that fire in an addiction. Every affectionate gesture, every makeup after a fight, every moment when everything seems fine releases dopamine, oxytocin, and other chemicals that reinforce the bond. Over time, your brain associates that person with relief and pleasure. And when you try to leave, those chemicals drop suddenly, creating symptoms similar to withdrawal, anxiety, insomnia, deep sadness, obsessive thoughts, and a hard-to-bear emptiness. That's why, even when you know the relationship is harmful, your mind pushes you to go back, not because you really believe it's better now, but because it craves the immediate relief of another dose of dopamine. This attachment addiction reward cycle is so powerful, it can keep you stuck for months or even years, despite knowing the damage it's causing. Staying in a relationship with someone who hurts you doesn't just wound your emotions. It also changes your mind and body in ways you may not even realize. Emotionally, anxiety becomes chronic. You live in a constant state of alert, waiting for the next wound or conflict. Your self-esteem slowly erodes because the constant message you receive and reinforce in your own mind is that you don't deserve better. This is often accompanied by social isolation. You begin to pull away from friends and family, either out of shame, fear of being judged, or simply because the relationship drains all your energy. Over time, depression may also appear, a feeling of emptiness and hopelessness that clouds your ability to imagine a different future. Physically, prolonged stress raises your cortisol levels, the stress hormone. This affects your immune system, your sleep, your digestion, and can even contribute to cardiovascular problems and chronic fatigue. Your brain suffers too. Ongoing stress can shrink the hippocampus, critical for memory and learning, and overactivate the amygdala, making you even more sensitive to fear and anxiety. And your ability to trust and form healthy relationships in the future is also impacted. After living in a toxic environment, your brain starts to generalize danger. It becomes harder to open up. You become suspicious of those who actually want to care for you, and sometimes even reject what's truly good for you. That's why it's so important to recognize these consequences and stop normalizing them. Because staying doesn't just prolong the damage, it trains your mind and body to live in a state you should never accept as normal. When you understand that your brain and body have become used to living on high alert, an inevitable question arises. Why do we accept, and sometimes even seek out, people who hurt us emotionally? The answer often isn't just in the present, but in the wounds of the past. Childhood experiences, especially if there was abandonment, abuse, or lack of affection, can program an insecure attachment, a mix of fear of abandonment and fear of real intimacy. This kind of attachment makes you more likely to cling to people who recreate painful dynamics, because that's what your mind recognizes as normal. Low self-esteem also plays a crucial role. When you don't feel worthy on your own, it's easier to believe you deserve very little, or that love always comes with suffering. That unconscious belief that love hurts or that you have to endure to be loved becomes a lens that distorts what you're willing to accept in a relationship. Another common mechanism is idealizing the person who hurts you. Your brain builds a version of them that doesn't really exist. You focus on the few times they were kind. You magnify the good moments and minimize the bad. This not only reinforces the attachment, but also keeps you trapped in a cycle of hope, waiting for that idealized version to finally show up, even if it never does. Understanding these emotional and psychological factors isn't about blaming yourself for feeling the way you do. It's about realizing that many of your reactions today are echoes of past wounds and learned patterns. And then comes the most powerful question of this video. If all this is programmed into your mind, can you reprogram yourself and choose differently? The answer is yes. Your brain has an incredible capacity to learn new paths and detach from what harms you. The first step is to break the reward cycle. Every time you go back to that person or tolerate their harmful behavior, your brain gets a little dose of dopamine that reinforces the bond. To break this, it's crucial to cut contact, if possible, or at least set firm, consistent boundaries. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, like withdrawal. But over time, your brain will learn to live without that toxic dose. The second step is to create new connections and new sources of well-being. This means surrounding yourself with people and activities that nourish you emotionally, that give you validation and pleasure without hurting you. Every positive experience with someone healthy weakens the associations with pain and strengthens new neural networks. Third, work on your self-esteem and heal your old wounds. Therapy, self-reflection, and self-care are essential to reprogram those unconscious beliefs that you deserve little or that love always hurts. When you learn to validate yourself, you no longer need that person to prove your worth. And finally, practice presence and gratitude. Your mind tends to wander to the past, idealizing, or to the future, fearing. But right here and now is where you can regain your power. Breathe, reconnect with your body, and acknowledge even the smallest progress. That too trains your brain to live without depending on what harms it. Reprogramming yourself isn't easy or immediate, but it is possible and profoundly liberating. It's the greatest act of self-love you can give yourself. Remember, loving someone who hurts you doesn't mean you're weak or broken. It means your brain learned to associate pain with love, but it can also learn to separate them. Every time you choose to set boundaries, walk away, heal your wounds, and choose yourself, you're teaching your mind that you deserve better. And even though it hurts at first and feels impossible, every small step matters. The neural connections that tie you to the past today can transform into bridges toward a freer, more conscious life. Your well-being doesn't depend on who hurt you. It depends on what you choose to do from now on. If this video helped you understand what your mind already suspected, share it with someone who needs it. Leave us your experience in the comments and subscribe to keep learning how to care for your mind and your heart. Because knowledge doesn't just inform, it also heals, transforms, and sometimes even saves. See you in the next video, Neurocurious Minds.